one of my biggest values right now is women who are decades apart in age from each other, learning from each other. So, and I don't have a lot of women in their, in their 60s and even 70s. So I'm going to call you a mentor. I am so excited to learn from you. So
Thank you. Thank you.
So
I actually have that on my website, Matriarch, Mystic, and Mentor.
Yeah.
Because I know that I'm in the season of my life where I want to mentor as many women as possible, just to be able to stop this sort of notion of being versions of yourself. There is an authentic self that we were created to be. And the sooner we put aside trying to go through versions of what other people think we should be and step into our authentic true selves, that's when we live our best life.
Do you think, before we dive into the Enneagram, do you think that that's part of the wisdom of aging for women? Because I would say that about a couple of years ago, I'm 54, a couple of years ago, that word authentic version of myself kept popping up. And I hit this place where I was like, I'm no longer willing to bend over backwards for everybody around me. I want to do what's right for me. And then that became the question of, well, what's right for me? And I realized I didn't have the answer to that. And I'm wondering if that's part of the aging process, that we just start to realize we don't feel like people pleasing and putting up with everybody else's game anymore.
Well, with age should come wisdom.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can really grow into the space of wisdom is to recognize that as you go through your life, if you are picking up knowledge, if you are seeing different examples of things in life that you can do differently, but if you don't embody the knowledge, the examples that are put and the lessons that are there for you, then you don't gain wisdom.
Yeah.
You just keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. And as we know, the universe will give you ample opportunity to try it again.
Yes. Yes, she does.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I can say that there comes a time in your life when it's not about pleasing someone else or being who you think you're supposed to be. You really take the time and you go inward. It becomes more of an internal journey than it is an external journey. Now, I'm not going to say that, you get to the point where you don't care at all how you look or you don't care what anybody thinks. We're human.
Right.
And as long as we're human beings, we're going to have some level of living in the real world and real life experiences. But what do you really value? And what's valuable and what's important is what's going on inside.
Right. When I learned the Enneagram through your lens, what I realize is it is a coming home to yourself. And when I talk to women out there, so many women are putting everybody else ahead of their own needs. So that coming home, when they try to come home, they don't know who they're going to find there. So when I first started looking at the Enneagram through the lens in which you teach it, I realized, wow, what an incredible opportunity to tap into a system to understand yourself and your motivations and the way you operate in the world in a second. And so can we start with that? Because I'm hoping that the women listening to this podcast will see that if they are lost in understanding who they are, the Enneagram is an incredible system to find yourself.
It absolutely is. Mindy, I can tell you that the Enneagram changed my life. And I was fortunate enough to find it at a young enough stage where the changes that I needed to make, which were very much about looking at how I was showing up in the world, and not only the impact that it had on me, but the impact it was having on the relationships in my life. The Enneagram gave me an opportunity to see and experience myself the way other people saw and experienced me. And that at first is horrifying.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm thinking.
It's horrifying. Yeah. When I first found out my Enneagram type, the point that I stand at, I honestly curled up in a little ball and I just cried. I just sobbed.
Tears of sadness or
sadness? It was sadness. And it was sadness because who I thought I was and what I thought I was doing, I recognized immediately that my good intentions might not have been landing in the way that I hoped that they were. You know, I stand at Enneagram 0.1, and I am a do the right thing kind of person. And I believe very much in, you know, kind of self-improvement and personal development, all of those good things, and helping other people to get there. But if you push too hard, you know, it's the old adage, if you're a hammer and everything looks like a nail, you know, I recognize that my lens might have been that of everyone is broken, so let me help fix you. Now, that was not my intent, but I did see that if you're constantly trying to help someone be better, particularly if they haven't asked for it, then what's the message that you're sending?
Yeah.
The message is you're broken.
Yeah.
You're broken. And it just broke my own heart to realize that I'm trying to be helpful, and yet I may have actually hurt people. And yeah. And
how old were you?
I was 40 something, early 40s.
And were you a psychologist at that point? Yeah, you were in practice? And that would be a really interesting lens where of course people come to a therapist to get help because they're perceived as broken. But if you accentuate that, I can understand as a healer and a helper, that would feel really horrible to want to. Yeah, I could understand that.
And the interesting thing about finding the Enneagram is that in addition to having that epiphany, I also recognized that all of the work that I had been doing with people as a therapist, that I could absolutely accelerate their growth if I could give them the Enneagram, that after they left me, they could continue to do their own inner work. Because you tell people all the time, you've got to do the work. Well, what is the work?
Right.
And how do you really help put someone on that path? Yeah. So by teaching people and showing them and introducing them to the Enneagram, then they began their own deeper exploration. Yeah. And at that point, I thought, wow, okay, this is unbelievable.
I think, we have had a lot of conversations about my parents coming home in my early 20s, having studied the Enneagram and announcing the numbers that we all were. And I think that in that moment, what I learned the first time I heard the Enneagram was, oh, you mean we all look at life differently? And that was freeing, to have the opportunity to understand that you have a lens in which you are viewing everything from, and it could be different than my lens. And if I understand your lens and I understand my lens, the communication could be a lot deeper. And I would say for the last 30 years, that has been my impression of the Enneagram, is honoring that you have a unique way in which you're going to communicate, and I have a unique way. What I'm now learning from you is so much more than that. But that alone, I think, is freeing. So can you talk a little bit, for people who don't know what the Enneagram is, what is the general premise of this typing system? It's been around forever. It's gaining more momentum, so it's not going anywhere. Why are so many people excited about this?
It's really funny. The Enneagram the symbol is what has been around forever. The symbol actually predates Plato.
Oh, wow.
But the actual personality typology system, it came to the Western world in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it actually came in through the Jesuits, and they were studying it, and they were told not to share it with anyone. And of course, you know what happens when you tell someone not to share. So of course, it immediately spread throughout California, and the rest is history. But it is actually a psycho-spiritual tool. I call it the owner's manual that you wish you were born with.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's very much a blueprint to your own being. It's your operating system. And if you can understand your operating system, then life doesn't have to be quite so hard. You know, I think the greatest gift of the Enneagram is the reality of when you understand why you do what you do, there are some things that you will stop doing. There are some things that you will understand and stop blaming and hurting yourself for. There are some things that you will stop accusing other people of. It's just a gift of grace and love, and it teaches you that you are just fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing about you that is random. There's nothing about you that was not intentionally created in your being for your good. Yeah. The question is, and the quest is, using it for your good.
Right.
As opposed to getting sidetracked, detoured, and just making life so difficult. But what the Enneagram identifies is your core motivation, your basic desire, the thing that you are most trying to get out of life, your basic fear, the thing that you are most trying to avoid. And then it also has some beautiful gifts. It shows you something that we call the passion, which is like the vice, the thing that kind of, that's that thing that you're afraid to go near, but at the same time, you have to touch it in order to wake up. It also shows you these patterns that we get into, the fixations, and that we keep playing these out over and over again. And then once we can break out of the fixation of our behavioral patterns, then we can step into the beautiful gift of our virtue. And every type has a virtue that, it's like your superpower.
Right.
It's that thing about you that is so special that draws people to you. Yeah. So it's all energy, Mindy.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that we don't talk about enough, is the reality that the Enneagram is 9 specific points, and each one of those points has a certain energy, but only one of them leads within you. So you have all 9 of those energies in you. That's what makes you a whole human being. But one of those energies is your dominant energy. That is what becomes your type. And you're born with it.
Okay.
You're born with it. You have brothers and sisters?
I have a sister, yeah.
You have a sister. Okay. Do you two have the same personality?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. No. So people say, is it nature or is it nurture? It's both.
Yeah. But
you're born with the Enneagram type kind of in place. And then based on how you're nurtured, it sort of influences the way it solidifies.
Can you, now I'm sure I'm laughing in my own head, because can you go through the 9 types briefly? There's a lot here. And I'm laughing because people do this with fasting all the time with me. They're like, go through the 6 different fasts. And, you get on these podcasts, you're like, really? I've done this like a bazillion times. So I apologize for asking you to do it, but I think it would be helpful for people to understand the 9 types. And for those of you listening, really think, I mean, this is the way I think of it, is think of what, as you're going through them, what hits you, what resonates with you, what sounds like you.